The introduction. In the quiet, unassuming town of Everwood, nestled among dense woods and meandering rivers, an unsettling silence permeated the air. A community known for its close-knit bonds and tranquil lifestyle, the residents had never given much thought to darkness lurking in their midst. The small town had its fair share of mundane gossip and neighborly disputes, but nothing could prepare them for the disappearance of Erin Foster. Erin was a beacon of light in Everwood, a vibrant high school teacher with a passion for literature and a knack for inspiring her students. As autumn's chill descended, she began an ordinary school day like any other, filled with laughter and the rustle of papers. But by that evening, when Erin did not return home, the unease deepened. Her husband, Mark, initially chalked it up to an after-school meeting. But as the hours stretched into a restless night, worry took hold. The following morning brought a grim sight to the Foster household. An open door and the familiar warmth of a neglected home. Mark's frantic phone calls to friends and family yielded only silence. Soon, the community came alive as neighbors and volunteers gathered to aid in the search. As search dogs combed through the wooded areas and posters with Erin's smiling face blanketed Everwood, a sense of dread began to creep in. Unbeknownst to them, this idyllic town was on the precipice of unraveling a mystery that would expose its darkest secrets and change it forever. The victim. The investigation into Erin Foster's disappearance unfolded against the backdrop of her vibrant life. Friends and family immediately stepped forward, eager to share their fondest memories, each story painting a picture of a woman devoted not only to her profession, but to those she loved. To her students at Everwood High, Erin was more than just a teacher. She was a mentor, someone who inspired curiosity and a love for knowledge. Her love for literature was infectious. She would often recite lines from classic poets, her spirited voice resonating in the classroom, awakening the imaginations of even the most reluctant learners. Intrigued minds flourished under her guidance, creating a community of avid readers. Erin's laughter could be heard echoing through the halls, a harmonious contrast to the solemn undertones that began to shadow the town. At home, she played the role of a caring wife, often exchanging playful banter with Mark over evening meals. The couple enjoyed a simple life candlelit dinners, spontaneous weekend hikes, and quiet nights spent wrapped in each other's arms while watching their favorite movies. Yet there were whispers beneath the surface. While Erin radiated warmth, not all relationships were so seamless. Beneath her gentle demeanor, friends had noted hints of tension in her marriage's subtle disagreements that occasionally erupted during social gatherings. As investigators began piecing together the fragments of Erin's life, they discovered an intricate web of friendships and rivalries, each thread weaving deeper mysteries and highlighting the shadows that often accompany life. Erin was not just a beloved teacher. She had her secrets, and it appeared the tighter the community held onto their image of her, the more questions began to surface. The crime scene. As search efforts intensified, a growing dread settled over the townspeople of Everwood. Days passed, turning into a week, and the desperate hope of finding Erin faded into a muted anxiety. Law enforcement scoured the woods, combing through the underbrush and scouring the nearby riverbank. Yet each probe revealed nothing but dead leaves and twisted roots, concealing whatever had happened to Erin. Then, on a gray afternoon, a tip led investigators to an abandoned cabin on the outskirts of town. Tucked away among thickets of gnarled trees, the cabin was a remnant of forgotten time-sits, chipped paint, and cracked windows standing stark against the brooding sky. The scent of damp wood mixed with the acrid tang of decay as officers approached the decrepit structure. A air thick with expectation and fear of what they might find. As they entered, dust motes danced in the slivers of light filtering through the grimy windows. Inside, the cabin had remained untouched, preserving a stillness that felt both eerie and heavy. It smelled like mold and lost hopes in an unsettling silence that seemed to echo the mystery surrounding Erin's fate. Scouring the premises, officers found remnants of life once lived up, peeling wallpaper adorned with floral patterns, an old armchair sagging under its own weight, and scattered magazines left behind as if time had merely paused. It was in the small back room, however, that the atmosphere shifted dramatically. A faint but unmistakable trace of distress hung in the air, as if the walls themselves whispered truths unspoken. The discovery of personal effects items belonging to Erin ignited a flurry of activity. The search for clues turned from a broad community effort into an investigation steeped in a singular focus. Here, in this forsaken cabin, a chilling realization set in. The darkness of Everwood had spread its roots deeper than anyone could imagine. The early investigation, with the discovery of Erin Foster's belongings in the abandoned cabin, the investigation rapidly changed direction. Detective Sam Collins, a seasoned investigator with over 2 decades of experience, was called in to lead the case. Initially known for his intuitive understanding of human behavior, Collins focused on building a timeline of Erin's last known movements. Every detail, no matter how trivial it seemed, could be a crucial piece of the puzzle. Collins began interviews with those closest to Erin, her family, friends, colleagues, and anyone who may have seen her in the days leading up to her disappearance. Each account was meticulously recorded, adding layers to the understanding of the missing teacher's life. As stories unfolded, a common theme arose. Erin's interactions had taken on a new tone in the weeks before she vanished. Whispers of anxiety in her voice, and a certain tension that seemed to wrap around her like a heavy shawl raised red flags. Colleagues recounted a troubling interaction with a parent of one of her students. A father, troubled and confrontational, had approached Erin after class, his frustrations boiling over regarding his child's academic performance. It was said he had left the school with threats dangling in the air, a tangible discontent that unsettled both Erin and her colleagues. Detective Collins carefully noted these circumstances, contemplating the possible connections between Erin's life and the shadows lurking at its edges. He felt a knot in his stomach as he pondered the weight of this newfound knowledge. Did this parent harbor a deeper animosity that could cross the line? Or was it merely coincidental, an echo of the anxieties that often clouded the teaching profession? Days turned to weeks, and as the investigation unfolded, collaborators, suspects, and motives shifted like sands. The quaint town of Everwood, typically characterized by its charm, now brimmed with suspicion, each resident navigating their own insecurities beneath the surface. The dead. As the investigation into Erin Foster's disappearance progressed, the initial momentum of hope and discovery began to wane, giving way to frustration and despair. Leads that once appeared promising turned into barren paths, each one culminating in a dead end that only exacerbated the town's growing unrest. Detective Collins found himself grappling with the weight of unfulfilled expectations. Every potential witness seemed shrouded in uncertainty, their words like fog drifting through the air, leaving no clear trail to follow. The unsettling realization became apparent. Erin's life, once vibrant and well-connected, seemed to recede into obscurity as investigators probed further. The father of the disgruntled student, who initially appeared to play a significant role, presented an airtight alibi, bolstered by several witnesses who corroborated his whereabouts during the time of Erin's disappearance. The community was torn between a sense of relief and a deepening anxiety. Who, then, could be responsible? Further investigations revealed that Erin's personal life contained complications unknown to many. An anonymous tip pointed detectives toward a distant relative, a cousin Erin had stopped contacting years prior after a family dispute. Yet, after a thorough inquiry, it became clear that this relative had been living across the country and had no possible connection to the case. Each avenue they explored left the detective more disheartened than the last, as these limbs branched off into nothingness. As the weeks turned into months, whispers within the community grew louder, placing blame on the police for their perceived incompetence. Subtle shifts in public sentiment echoed through town, creating an atmosphere of distrust that only further complicated the investigation. Residents of Everwood, once unshakably close-knit, became aware that the greatest threat may lay within their own rank charts, once filled with camaraderie, now troubled by doubt. The darkness surrounding Erin's case began to weave itself into the fabric of Everwood, transforming the town forever as it sought to reconcile a past steeped in familiarity with a present fraught with uncertainty. A break in the case. Just when it seemed that the shadows would swallow the investigation whole, a breakthrough emerged, juxtaposing the sea of uncertainty that had engulfed both Detective Collins and the Everwood community. A seemingly trivial report came in from a local shopkeeper that afternoon. Collins sat shuffling through his notes when Officer Janet Mills burst into the room with a look of urgency that grabbed his attention. A customer at a nearby gas station recognized Erin's description from a flyer displayed prominently at the counter. The witness claimed to have seen a woman matching Erin's appearance, speaking to a man in a dark hoodie the day she went missing. The encounter unfolded at dusk, just as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting lengthening shadows across the pavement. An uneasy feeling gripped the shopkeeper as she recalled the man's demeanor, aggressive and confrontation. The detective felt a surge of adrenaline, further stoked by the prospect that this man could hold the key to unraveling the mystery. Collins and Officer Mills quickly interviewed the shopkeeper, carefully compiling every detail about the man's physical build, the color of his hoodie, and the vehicle he drove. With this description in hand, they wasted no time combing through security footage from local stores, hoping to trace the man spotted at the gas station. Within hours, painstaking efforts bore fruit. A grainy image of a man who fit the description emerged, slipping into a dilapidated diner on the outskirts of town. Collins' pulse quickened as he followed leads, connecting dots he had been grappling with for weeks. He analyzed every grain of the footage, focusing on the man's furtive movements and the aura of tension around him. Hope, rejuvenated, coursed through Collins as he shared the findings with the team. The picture formed more than just an individual. It birthed the concept of a confrontation and interaction that may have spiraled tragically. This man, whoever he was no longer a faceless shadow hovering at the edge of the investigation. As the pieces began to converge, a renewed sense of determination swept through the town, underscoring the notion that darkness could be met with light, and perhaps Erin would soon be brought back home. The suspect. The hunt for the mysterious man from the diner escalated quickly, the urgency in Detective Collins' movements palpable as he coordinated a surveillance operation to track down the lead. With the bustling atmosphere of Everwood still marred by whispers of unease. The community became increasingly aware of the police presence. Collins understood that the walls of their trust were tenuous, yet he remained resolute, knowing that transparency could be the bedrock upon which they rebuilt faith in the investigation. Through meticulous work, officers managed to identify the man in the footage. His name was Jake Mason, a transient who had recently moved through Everwood, living out of his car just a mile from the dike. Collins dispatched a team to locate him, acutely aware that the clock was ticking in with each passing day. The window for gathering solid evidence risked closing. Within hours, Mason was apprehended. As he stood in the interrogation room, disheveled and guarded, wearing a look of defiant indifference, it seemed he had mastered the art of evasion. Collins, composed and focused, began the questioning, slowly peeling away the layers of Mason's facade. Mason first brushed aside questions, dismissing any notion of involvement in Erin's disappearance. His alibi was flimsy. At best, it claimed to have been taking a nap in his vehicle that evening. A quick search of his surroundings confirmed no signs of Erin. Yet there was something about his demeanor that set off alarms in Collins' mind. Anxiety danced just beneath the surface, and glimpses of impatience flickered in Mason's responses. As Collins pressed on, various subtleties in Mason's story began to crumble under scrutiny. The once calm mask cracked slightly as questions grew more pointed, his voice rising in pitch as he struggled to maintain composure. Something in the way he fidgeted, his eyes darting away from the detective's steady gaze, hinted that beneath the layers of bravado lay an unsettling truth. The interrogation burned through the remaining hours of the day, drawing closer to the heart of the matter. Each tick of the clock served as a reminder of Erin's absence, urging Collins to break through the obstacles and reveal the truth lurking beneath Mason's defiance. The pieces began to fall into place, yet the larger puzzle remained obscured, demanding patience and diligence in equal measure. Everwood held its breath, waiting for justice to unfold. The trial. As the town of Everwood braced itself for the trial of Jake Mason, a collective sense of anxiety gripped the community. Months had passed since Erin Foster's disappearance, and now they were on the precipice of facing the questions that had haunted them for far too long. The courtroom, usually a bastion of order and decorum, transformed into a tense battleground, where the fates of many intertwined under the weight of grief, anger, and yearning for justice. Detective Collins sat among the spectators, his gaze fixed on the defendant. Mason had transformed in appearance since his arrest. The bravado that once glimmered in his eyes was overshadowed by the pallor of fear and trepidation. As the proceedings began, both the prosecution and defense presented their arguments, weaving a tapestry of conflicting narratives that sought to captivate the jury. The prosecution painted Mason as an unstable individual, rife with past run-ins with the law and a proclivity for violence. They recounted the events leading up to Erin's disappearance, highlighting witness testimonies that placed him in questionable proximity to her the evening she was last seen. Witness after expert witness connected physical evidence, scratch paint from Erin's car found on Mason's belongings, and his erratic behavior at the dineros, a strong indictment of his involvement. The defense, however, sought to dismantle the prosecution's case with equal fervor. They aimed to establish reasonable doubt, characterizing Mason as a harmless drifter, caught in a web of unfortunate circumstance. They challenged the integrity of the testimonies, painting an unflattering portrait of the town's anxieties reflected in witness statements. A man labeled a monster before the facts have been presented. His attorney proclaimed, imploring the jury to look beyond fear-driven assumptions. Days dragged into weeks, each moment heavy with the weight of unfulfilled hope. As Erin's loved ones sat in silent solidarity, their faces revealed a tapestry of sorrow, determination, and the occasional flicker of rage. Every time a new witness was called to the stand, the air grew thicker there. In that courtroom, they felt the pulse of Erin's absence echo through every statement made. As the trial neared its conclusion, both sides delivered closing statements that resonated, each sector of the courtroom gripping the edge of their seats. The jury, tasked with unraveling the mystery of the past months, retreated to deliberate, burdened with a decision that would irrevocably alter the lives of many. Outside the courthouse, the community awaited news not just of a verdict but of the chance for closure. Shadows lingered heavily, and Everwood was forever changed, standing at the crossroads between a harrowing past and an uncertain future. The aftermath. The gavel's echo resonated through the courtroom, an unforgiving finality to the months of anguish and uncertainty. Jake Mason was found guilty on multiple counts related to Erin Foster's disappearance. As the verdict announcement hung in the air, a mix of relief and sorrow washed over the courtroom. While the guilty verdict granted a sense of justice, it could not mend the chasm that Erin's absence had carved into the hearts of her family, friends, and the community as a whole. In the days that followed, the town of Everwood began the slow process of healing. The local school held a memorial for Erin, filling the gymnasium with photographs, flowers, and the laughter of students recalling their beloved teacher's undeniable impact on their lives. It was a bittersweet tribute, an acknowledgement of a life that, although cut short, continued to inspire and uplift. Community members shared stories, sometimes through tear-filled eyes, reflecting on a woman who had touched their lives in meaningful ways. Detective Collins found himself navigating a complex emotional landscape. The triumph of securing a conviction was bittersweet. The answers brought little solace. He pored over the details of the case one last time, seeking clarity in the chaotic aftermath. Each revelation had opened more questions than it answered, highlighting the darker recesses of human behavior, while providing a glimpse into the profound ripple effects that tragedy can unleash on an entire community. As the investigation into Erin's case faded into the background of headlines and news reports, some truths remained. Those who had once been neighbors became distant figures, an unspoken tension now woven into Everwood's fabric, leaving behind a strangely altered social dynamic. Gossip about the case persisted, feeding into an unsettling undercurrent of paranoia that swept through the town. Who could they truly trust? Despite the shadows cast by the past, there was a quiet determination among Erin's surviving family and friends to honor her legacy. They established a scholarship in her name dedicated to nurturing young writers, igniting hope in students as Erin had done so beautifully. Though the journey toward healing would stretch on indefinitely, the community sought to find light amid the lingering darkness. As Everwood moved forward, every sunset served as a reminder. Erin Foster had left her mark on the town she loved, ensuring that her spirit would never be forgotten, even amid the scars left by tragedy. The echoes of loss refined the collective consciousness, resulting in a gentler embrace of community connection and resilience, a testament to the light that can arise from darkness. Reflection. In the solitude of early mornings, Detective Sam Collins often found himself revisiting memories of the ghastly faces of Erin's family, the heartache etched into their expressions, and the collective suffering of a town grappling with the aftermath of a tragedy. Reflection painted the labyrinth of his thoughts in shades of sorrow and recognition. Each moment, a teacher shaping his understanding of the fragility of life. Erin's memory lingered, transforming the way he approached his work, urging him to remember the human cost behind every case. He understood acutely that each file held the potential to change lives irreversibly, an emotional ledger of anguish, love, and hope. The lingering echoes of Erin's students, now striving for their dreams through the scholarship in her name, served as a beacon against the darkness that had once clouded the community. As time passed, community gatherings fostered healing, revealing a spirit of togetherness forged in adversity. The people of Everwood were learning to talk openly about their fears and vulnerabilities, carving a new understanding of what it meant to belong. The once clear lines between neighbor and stranger blurred into a tapestry of shared experience, a poignant reminder that in the depth of tragedy, empathy flourished. Though the scars of that fateful day would never fully fade, the bonds strengthened in its wake served as a testament to resilience. Erin's story became woven into the fabric of Everwood, a tale of love that transcended tragedy, reminding both the detective and the community that while darkness may briefly obscure the light, it is love, memory, and the path forward.